Hello lovely YouTube family, welcome back to Future 10s. In today's video we're going to talk about 10 supercars dropping very soon. Before we start, I would want you to hit that red subscribe button so you never miss out on any of our videos. Supercars and super sports cars, while being faster than everything else these days, are also made in the greatest numbers yet. The variety to choose from is the broadest there's ever been. There's also more expensive than ever. The issue of depreciation of these cars is a thorny one, both of the manufacturer and quite obviously those that buy them. Insurance firm Haggerty has run the numbers on the US and European markets and worked out what cars have been depreciated the most and by how much. So let's count some of them down in order of percentages lost in the first 3 years. Supercars come from all kinds of manufacturers. Established brands like Ferrari, Porsche, McLaren, and Lamborghini have been producing supercars for years, but nowadays they face challenges from the likes of Ford GT and Honda NSX, not to mention electric cars like the Porsche Taycan that could embarrass half of the petrol-powered models on the list. Whoever makes them, all supercars have fearsome price tags and typically cost a fortune to run. High costs for fuel, insurance, and servicing needs to be taken into account, as do eye-watering depreciation figures if you choose poorly. Of course, many buyers around the world are more willing to make the trade-offs of the supercar's scintillating performance and capacity to get the adrenaline flowing. It's not unusual for a supercar to top 200 miles per hour these days, and 0 to 62 mile per hour times of under 3 seconds are becoming commonplace. Number 10, Porsche 911 GT3 RS 13%. Given the cult status of the 911 GT3, we find it surprising to see it in its hardcore RS sibling on the Haggerty's list of chic second-hand supercars. Speculators, you only have yourself to blame apparently. Inflated initial prices and the popularity/availability of the model in the following years means there's a supply that outstrips demand. The so-called lightning in a bottle 911 R movement had dollar signs in buyers' eyes, if there were an excuse to forget about the values and just to go out and drive. Number 9, Lamborghini Aventador 16%. For a pretender to hypercar status like the Aventador, would you imagine it dropping 16% of its value within the first 3 years? Actually, according to Haggerty, yes. Top-level Lambos are no stronger to losses in their first years of life. Even now, Murcielagos can be had for under £100,000. Coupled with the fact that the Aventador is by far the most numerous Lamborghini V12, and honestly, we're actually surprised further drops haven't been found. Number 8, Audi R8 V10 16%. Honestly, in the supercar market, an Audi R8 has almost everything standing against it in terms of holding value. Relatively little model heritage, a badge that's not so exotic, and high production numbers to boot. In spite of all this, the car that's on release was first described by some as the Big Audi TT, drops only 16% after 3 years according to Haggerty. They're doing so much better than some exotic Marques that have been around for 70 more years or so. 7, Ferrari 488 GTB, 16%. Namely, a certain Maranello manufacturer that wears a prancing horse atop its snout. According to Haggerty, the Ferrari 488 GTB seems to lose 16% of its purchase price within the first 3 years. Contrast that to the hardcore Pista variant, which tended to gain over 5% within the first year. Number 6, Ferrari 812 Superfast, 18%. The Pista gets an exception because it's vaguely limited in hardcore variant. The standard 488 gets passed because it's the first of the modern mid-engine cars that controversially go turbocharged. The 812, though, is a classic long-bonneted V12 Ferrari GT on full song, putting on 800 PS and revving to 9,000 RPM. What's an excuse for appearing on Haggerty's list? It doesn't have one, and still, it depreciates by 18% over the course of 3 years. Number 5, Mercedes AMG GT, 20%. Now we're getting into Haggerty's big league of cheap supercars. 2 Germans start and end the final 5, with a trio of Brits in the middle, starting with the AMG GT. Like the R8, it's a high-level supercar sports car with a lightly more conventional badge. It's also built in strong numbers, in a class Mercedes hasn't occupied before. The result? AMGTs are 3 years drop 20% of their value on average. Number 4, McLaren S20S 23%. Now we're getting into the spicy stuff. McLaren and depreciation are keywords in a few big hitting articles over the last couple of years. Happily, the figures Haggerty has come up with is 720S, which is, let's not understate, still one of the very best supercars you can buy, are a bit more favorable than some headlines would have you believe. In 3 years on average, a 720S is losing 23% of its value. Why McLaren's depreciate like they do can be attributed to a number of reasons. Questionable reality, its previous build-to-stock strategy, its relative newsness in the road car scene. We don't know, but the cars are excellent, definitely deserve to hold their money better. That also means that secondhand McLarens are absolute bargains. Number 3, Aston Martin DBS Super Allegra, 25%. As are many Aston Martins, for whatever reason, the highly storied and historic Marques can't build cars that hang there for a second-hand market according to Haggerty. The latest case in point of the DBS Super Allegra flagship, falling right in the footsteps of Vanquish. One of the strategies for recovery that new CEO Tobias Morris has implemented, as reported in recent interviews, is getting rid of the same build strategy that McLaren used. Build to order rather than the build to stock can help Aston up. Time will tell, but now, a DBS Coupe is dropping 25% of its value in the first 3 years. Number 2, McLaren 570S 25%. As is the McLaren 570S, like its big brother the 720, it is an excellent near-class leading supercar. Like the 720, there are questions about reliability. The difference, there are even more 570s on the market. It's also been discontinued, with new hybrids like McLaren Artura coming to all but take its place. What Haggerty has emphasized is that none of these early years values have been bearing on what the car's standing in the market will be when it gets closer to classic age. Yes, 570s could be an auction darling in 30 years, there's no telling. Number 1, Porsche 911 GT2 RS 30%. Another very weird one. The limited series top-end performance Porsche the 911 GT2 RS has lost 30% after 3 years. Good lord, how did that happen? The answer is flippers and dealers selling cars for way over listing. The lesson? Stop paying over listing price. As for the rest, step away from the configurator. In reality, the cars sold in Europe at the list price have, in many cases, gained value, but Haggerty's US-based numbers come from the actual sale price. That's all for today. I hope you liked the video. If you did, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel so you never miss any amazing video from us.